Solo Trapper, little update. I'm heading south to visit Marty Seneker today. Arguably the biggest coyote trapper on the planet Earth. And I'm gonna buy a bunch of gear from him and hopefully get the chance to visit with him. And I got a list of questions and whatnot, and some details and some curiosities that I want to go over with him. And yeah, I'm pretty pumped. For me, this is pretty significant. This is a significant venture for me to go and meet a guy that has got, Marty's got all the answers. He's the encyclopedia. So, pretty jacked. Getting some fuel here, and away I go. Solo Trapper out. All right, I'm gonna take and show you guys. I've got some gear here that comes from the field that I had catches in that I was not looking forward to, and thank goodness they weren't around when I got there. But that is the beauty of the modern day snare and putting breakaways on your gear. And so I'm going to flip this camera. What I've got right here is effectively, this is the snare from the field. This is a 3/32 1x19 anchor, and this was a 5/64 1x19 snare. It is exactly this setup that you see right here, except this is a 1/8 anchor 7x7 cable with a 5/64 snare. 2,000 pound halibut swivel, Seneker kill spring, and then the cam and the 750 pound breakaway. And the important thing that I came away from this experience with was this particular snare. What I had is I've mentioned this in a previous video. I had elk actually come through here, and elk got caught and broke those 750 pound breakaways. And what I found was there was little to no struggle, and elk is a big enough animal for them to take and do this damage to a 2,000 pound rated halibut swivel before that 750 pound breakaway gives way. I mean, that is a pretty enormous tug. You have to put one of these things in your hand to really fully appreciate that. But at any rate, that is what a before and after looks like. There's one other thing that I wanted to take and include in this video. I'll see if I can take and where can I? I'm going to show a few of my cam locks that caught wolves and the damage that was done to the teeth. There you can very, very clearly see it. And the decision that I've made with regards to cam locks, after going and having an extensive meeting with Marty Seneker, who is world-renowned coyote master and the inventor of said Stinger kill spring, I have come to the conclusion. I once thought that the idea, that one there, seems to be in fairly good shape. But again, here you see another one. I mean, you're not finding in the field exactly what you're looking for when you go and find that dead animal. This here is an animal struggling for sure longer than what he needed to. So at any rate, my success that I had with the black oxide cams this winter on coyotes was far and away a much better experience. those teeth and this metal is much harder, and that is the way that we're going to take and go from now on. Today I'm going to do a tutorial on building a wolf snare. It includes this gear. I've been asked in the past to do a proper tutorial of that, and that is the large extent of this video. Once I'm done the video of assembling the snare, then we're going to take and hang it, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So I'm excited. All right, here we go. I've got my diagram laid out, and oh man, I'm pumped. I got all my gear now, and I can take and build a bunch of snares. Yeah, pretty excited. I always like the days that it's time for building snares. But I'm just going to go through a proper tutorial specifically about building one wolf snare. I have had slight variations of these in the past. Not of any real critical significance. This batch of snares, what I am going to do, the wolf snares are going to be 60 inches. That's my cut. A 60-inch cut on my actual snare itself. And the anchor cable is going to get cut at exactly 6 feet. So basically what I've got here is I've got two ends of a 3/32 cable, and this here is my hardware that I'm going to take and put on there. Pretty standard issue of what I've got going on here. Now, the idea of these particular assemblies that I'm making is that what I'm doing is I want to only what I want to do with these guys is I want to I probably left that a little bit longer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to crimp that inside first, the very outside. Leave this a little bit shorter, and then that. But the idea of what I want to do here is once I've got this snare anchored around the tree and I take and have a catch, I'm going to take and leave this and this swivel behind. I have used these halibut swivels in the past, but the halibut swivels, they don't take in, you know what I mean, every time that you catch something, instead of being able to leave this hardware in the forest, you've got to take and redo the whole thing. And then you're having to take and reuse. You're bringing back gnarled up cables, and you're trying to put that on a brand new snare. You're better off just to take and replace the snare. So that's what I'm going to take and do. That is the anchor cable. I see people, they talk about the memory of the snare, or how the snare is naturally, how it wants to curve or coil or whatnot. I find that, relatively speaking, you're not going to have an inferior snare as long as you're not forcing the snare in any specific position when you go to take and put this hardware on. But if you take a straight length of cable just like this and take and put all that gear on, you're going to have a perfectly functioning snare. You don't have to take and you know, try to take and have all your cable laid out, and you know, this is your snare memory, this is your cable memory, etc., etc. This here is going to be an indiscriminate dispatching machine when you're done. This is absolutely, in today's day and age, this hardware right here is as humane a dispatching snare for canines as you're going to take and find anywhere on the market. I don't care what anybody's going to take and sell you, what somebody's taken and used. You know, some guys, they don't want to deviate, you know, what grandpa did, or you know, what's worked for them all along. I'm not saying that any other type of snare, however somebody wants to take and assemble it, I'm not telling them that it's wrong. What I do know is what we are trying to accomplish as trappers today is ethical and humane ways of dispatching animals. This right here, you're going to be very, very hard pressed to take and come up with a snare that is going to perform better than this. You may deviate. I know what Marty is doing is he's taking and coming up with Magnum springs. I'm going to take and do a batch of those. That's not what I'm going to do today. The idea is they're bigger and they're stronger, and they're going to have a larger range of push. So basically what's going to end up happening is the likelihood of that spring having an amount of spring left in it as opposed to being fully opened, which is not a bad thing. A lot of times that happens when the animal actually is expiring and laying down and relaxing. That's when that spring is able to take and fully open into the neck where that animal is caught. But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take and assemble this. I'm going to just take and I'm going to start at this end here. I'm just going to put this double ferrule on. So I'm going to take and put this double ferrule on here. And I'm going to leave a big enough loop that is going to make it manageable to take and put onto that swivel end. So now that that end is done, we're going to go ahead and lay out these devices and slide them on as I've shown. The larger end of the S hook is going to take and go into the loop. I'm going to take and crimp, just take and snug that up. Run the cable through, snug that up. Slide on our trigger, slide on our stinger, washer, and this here is, I don't know, other people might do it, I don't know. This is just how I started doing it. This here is a 5/64 single ferrule. This is a 3/32 single ferrule. I put the double on here. I just like the security of a little bit more meat on the end. Plus it kind of gives it what I feel is my signature as far as my snare goes. And that right there, folks, that's all the gear assembled onto a snare. So what you end up having here is you take, and that's where you'll find your snare. And you take and open it up. Okay, I'm going to take and reset this camera here, and then we'll set this snare. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got our components in our hands. We're in the field. Let's take and say that we've got boiled snares and this gear is ready to go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go about putting this thing together, and the amount of time that this is going to take me here, once you're actually on your snare set location in the forest, this is the time that it's going to take for you to put this thing out. The one thing that I do have is I have an anchor cable right here that's going to take and hang on to that snare and position that snare properly. I have put that in place. That is the one added thing that you're going to take and do in the field. Whatever your method is, we're going to cover just a little bit of that here. There's different ways to take and skin that cat. This is what I typically use. This is my base. So I'm going to go ahead and take and do that. So I'll take this snare, just hang that over my nice jacket here that I just got logoed up here the other day. Having said that, as far as my logos go, I did that. And I did this shirt. It's going to be coming soon to a store near you. I'm going to be soliciting all my viewers to hopefully take and buy some of my gear. Gotta like that, I hope. So here I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put this together. So I'm going to take and put this anchor cable around the tree. Okay, so I've got that right here. And I'm going to take this snare. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this snare, and here's the idea. I want to be able to reuse this. So I'm just going to run this loop through the swivel end, and then just take the rest of the action of the snare and just drop it through. And I'm going to take this end of this snare all the way through, so that I take and I latch it such that the ferrule is through the loop. So I've basically got nothing here that's going to take and fight the action of that swivel. So once that critter is in there, that's the idea. I'm going to give them some ability to take and have that swivel operate. I don't know if I'm far enough away. I think the demonstration explains itself there. So that's that. Then the only other thing that you have left is you take and open up that loop. You've got your Stinger kill spring plier in your pocket. And the Stinger kill spring will take and get set. I'll take and I'll show you Marty's little demo. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this snare and I'm going to bend this back and out of the way, just to take and keep that away from the action of that snare. Okay, so that right there, that is your snare set up. Now the thing about the 1x19 that I like is, generally speaking, if you do nothing with that snare, it holds itself open pretty good. Take and slide that on your cable, and depending on exactly what the situation is like in the field, whether or not you want to take and have a more snug loop, depending on where your branches are and how your area is fenced in, that generally there is going to take and prove to be invaluable for you as far as that goes. What this cable does, the number 9 solid wire, is it takes and it compensates. Didn't have that one stood up quite right. The idea is you take and you can put a bend on it, and you can really stand that snare up nice. So if you're just coming up at a slight angle like this, that cam can't come down. At the same time, if an animal walks through from the other side, that snare will fire really, really nice. So then, at the same time, what you can do with this snare is, like I said, if the trail is such that you want to cover just a slightly wider for whatever reason, if you're trying to cover a slightly wider swath of trail, there's another option that you can do. And what I've done in the past is you go like that. And I'll take and I'll grab my camera here and I'll kind of show you basically what this is. This here is not an ideal setup for myself, but the idea is there if you understand kind of what I did there. So I've just taken and put a bend in that cable or in this piece of wire, and this piece of wire right here, it can take and be however long it needs to be to, you know, attach to another tree to take and hang that snare up for you. But 9 times out of 10, what I like to take and see with my snares is I like to see them standing all on their own, straight up and down, just like so. That right there is a snare that has been put in motion. And like I said, you know, once you're in the field and you're doing this over and over and over, you're not going to be spending this amount of time with the snare. You will see how quick it's going to go for you. So that right there is a modern day coyote and wolf snare. It has worked really good for me in the past. And I mean, I know it's June, early June, and I've got a bunch of gear here ready to go, and I'm jacked about building more snares. And as I showed you a little earlier in the video, I was really dejected in a few of my catches there from last year when I saw the cams hadn't held up. And I see, like I said, I see all kinds of different cams that people use out in the field. But you know, I don't know. I mean, we're constantly learning out there, and the people that I'm talking to about gear these days is don't take and I think we've probably reached a point where our snares are what they're going to take and be 100 years from now. But you know, if there's something better out there in the market that you can utilize, make sure you keep an open mind. And let's get on these critters, but let's try and do it the right way. All right, I hope that helps you. I had a request for somebody to ask me how to take and put together a snare, and that's how I put my snares together right there. Drew with that little picture. You can find that on a few different sites. There you go. Build your snares that way. You're going to have success. Boil them properly.